Be'ezus Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Kamma Daf Nun Tes. We start off with a story over here. We're going to start off from Daf Nun Ches 58 on the about 18 lines from the bottom. And here we go. We're discussing over here of how to assess damages. You know, it's easy to when somebody is liable for damages, it's easy for the court to say, pay the max. But that's not in the Jewish law. In the Jewish law, it has to be very fair, even for the perpetrator. So the Gemara says like this, a story. Hahu Gavra, there was this person, the Katz Kashbe Mechavre. He cut down a palm tree that belonged to his friend. So what's a palm tree worth? So Asa the Kamma Deresh Galusas, that came before the mayor, let's say, the Jewish mayor. In the time of the Bava, the government allowed the Jews to run their own, to have their own government within Bavel. And the Jews hired somebody called a Reish Galusa. So sometimes he was knowledgeable, and oftentimes he was not so knowledgeable in Jewish law. But they came before the Reish Galusa to adjudicate the case. Amalei, so the Reish Galusa said, I saw where this palm tree comes from. Utlasa tlasa bekina havakaima. There were 3 palm trees planted together. And when I know for a fact, when those 3 palm trees, when you want to buy those 3 palm trees, you have to pay 100 zuz. So he said, Zil havle tlasin or tlasivitlosa. I want you to pay, since you chopped down 1 tree, you should pay 33 1/3 zuzim. Okay, which makes perfect sense, because if all 3 is worth 100, then you should pay 33 1/3. But Amar, so the perpetrator said, Gabi Reish Galusa the Doin Din the Parso Lomali. Why are we going to the Reish Galusa to adjudicate our dispute over here? And the Reish Galusa only knows the judicial law of the Persians. He's not a real Jew. I want to go to a real rabbi, and he should tell me how much I have to pay. Also, the Kamei the Rav Nachman. So they came to the Rav Nachman. Amalei, he said, B'shishem, you imagine that there were 60 palm trees over there, and how much are 60 palm trees worth? -1. And that's how much you have to pay. So that's a lot less. When you're dealing 1 of 3, so you're paying a higher price. But when you're dealing 1 of 60, it's the mazik, the perpetrator doesn't have to pay so much. Now, this idea of calculating how much something is worth when you, as it is 1 in 60, Amalei Rava disagreed. They asked Rav Nachman, Im Ama Beniske Memoine, this idea we find that you use the Shishim calculation to make it easier on the mazik is only when your ox did a damage, when your momain, something that belonging to you did a damage, then we try to go easy on you. Yoimru Beniske Gufa, would you go easy on a person who he himself did a damage? This guy himself cut down the tree. Why should we go easy on him? That's what Rava is questioning to Rav Nachman. Amalei Abaya LeRava, so Abaya interceded and came to the defense of Rav Nachman. Abaya said to Rava, Beniske Gufa my daita. What is your opinion that why is it that you think that when a person himself does the damage, we should go on the strictest mode of holding him accountable and making him pay the highest amount? Why do you say that? The Tanya, we learned in a brisa, Hamafke Kama Shachaveroi Smadar, Royan Oise Kama Hoise Yafa Koidem Lechain, Vekama Hu Yafa Lachem Lechain. Someone who cuts down the vineyard belonging to his friends when the grapes were just a little bit unripened. They're very small. They just budded. Okay, so we say, how do you determine how much you have to pay? We say, how much is a grapevine worth when it's just carrying buds, and how much is it worth when it's carrying full-grown grapes? And you take the difference. But you don't say shishim. Oh, you don't say this grapevine should be counted as 1 of 60 grapevines. No, you calculate precisely how much it's worth. Because why? Because here he himself did that. So if you yourself did that, then we go in the strictest form of payment. So that's what Abaya said. Is that your opinion? then I will find something else. Vilu b'shishim like It doesn't say you should evaluate as if it's one of 60 vineyards. So we don't go strict. We don't go easy on the guy if he did damage himself because of this brisa. So then Rabbi says, if that's true, with your animal also, we should also go very strict and not count 60. Bilay Tanya, didn't we learn? Kahai Gavna, a very similar case when your animal did a damage. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. A guy had an animal, Kotman Atia. He cut down, he ate and knocked down a sapling, a little small tree. So, Rabbi, what do you pay for that? What does the animal have to pay? Rabbi Yossi said, Goizre Gzeresh Yerushalayim Oimrim. These people who enact laws and fines in Yerushalayim, their names were Anbain and Chonan ben Avshalom. They said, Netiya Bashnosa, if the animal knocked down a tree that was 1 year old, Shtei Kesef, you pay 2 Kesefs. Bashtei Shonim, but if it's 2 years old, Arba'a Kesef, you pay 4 Kesefs. Okay. Achla Chaziz, if the animal ate leaves that did not yet grow into grain, so animal food. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, how do you define the payment? Nidim b'mishuya shabai. You see how much left what this little, let's say, this grain leaf would have grown into a full grown piece of wheat, let's say, and how much it would have each grown in its fullest extent, how much it's worth then, and how much is it worth now, and you take the difference is what you pay. In other words, basically what Rabbi Yossi Galili is saying is very interesting. You took away somebody's potential. Just because you ate like grain leaves, right? So maybe that's worth a penny, but technically that could have grown into a full-grown piece of wheat, and it's worth a quarter. So Rabbi Yossi Galili says, you take the difference, exactly how much it's worth when it's fully grown, and how much you ate, which is a penny, and it's worth fully grown as 25 cents, so you deduct, and you pay only 24 cents, but you always look at what could have became with this piece of grain. You say, you look at the Chachamim go easier, and they say, no, you look at not each piece of grain, but you look at the field. How much is a field worth when it only has chaziz on it, and how much is it worth when it's fully grown? And that difference you pay. So that's a lesser amount, but a little bit less than the Rabbi Yossi Galili. Now we go to Nuntes Amid Aleph. Achlos Smadar, if you ate a little small grape, right, when it just started to blossom, Rabbi Shua says, if the animal ate that, well, it took away a potential of a grape that could have been sold in the open market, and now he just ate that little bud. So we view it as if the animal ate grapes that were ready to be harvested. So he pays a very much higher price. Chachamim say, we see how a full-grown vineyard, how much it's worth when it has smother grapes, when it has little buds on it, and how much is a grapevine worth when it has fully grown grapes, and you pay the difference. So they're a little bit less than Rabbi Yeshua. Rab Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishum Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon ben Yehuda says the name of Shimon. But when do we say you go easy, right? Is bizman she'achlu lulve gugfanim b'yifurei te'enim. When he ate, only if the animal ate the vine before it even budded, right? There was no grapes on it. He just ate a tree of a vineyard or branches of a fig tree. But aval achla pagim oy boiser, if he ate just before the fruits ripen, let's say before the grape ripens, it's pretty big, right? It's as big as a bean, right? Or boiser, which is the same thing by grapes or figs. They're almost ripe. So what happens? What does the animal pay? So we view it as grapes ready to be harvested. So this is the point. The point is here, this brisa, and this is the whole mishmash. This brisa is talking about an animal eating, right? Your mammon is eating. And nevertheless, says Abaye, Ketanomi is, we have a partial quote. The Chacham says, Roy noisi kama oisi yafa, v'kama yafa, v'loi ketanu b'shishim. And it doesn't mention anything about, calculating it amongst 60 types, to go even easier on the person, easier on the owner of the ox. So how come it doesn't say shishim? And we know when an ox does damage, we learned in the previous Gemara, that you don't just calculate how much he ate, you calculate how much it's worth on 60 times more and as part of a 1/60th of a field, how much it's worth with this and how much it's worth less. But it doesn't say that in this brisa. But you can't say that the brisa ignored it because that's the halacha. When your mammon does damage, you always calculate it as part of shishim. So just it left it out because it's self-understood that when your money does damage, you calculate it among shishim. You Rava b'shishim. You Rava was looking at this brisa that said earlier, hamavake, if a man cut down a karam belonging to his chaveira, it doesn't say shishim. You have to say the brisa left it out because so Abaye is saying it doesn't matter who did the damage, whether your mammon did the damage or you yourself did the damage. The halacha should be like Rav Nachman, that you calculate it b'shishim. Okay? So again, if he chopped down one let's say date tree, you imagine there were 60 date trees, and he just chopped down one of them. And how much would the price be lowered if there's 1 out of 60 missing? Okay. Omar Abaye says a new thing. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, who said that you always look at, when you eat a small little grape, a tiny bud, you don't look at, the bud is worth 2 cents, so you pay 2 cents. No, this bud could have been a normal grape that you could have sold in Whole Foods. So you pay the full amount. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili said that a concept. Rabbi Shmuel Amru Davra Echa. Rabbi Shmuel also agrees with that concept. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Hoda Amr. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, we just explained that Rabbi Yossi Aglili said, if you eat a smadar, a little piece, you see it as if it was a full-grown grape, right? Rabbi Yossi Aglili is over here. You ate chaziz, which is also like something that didn't grow into a wheat. You look at what it could have become, right? And so Rabbi Shmuel, Abaye said Rabbi Shmuel agreed with that. Rabbi Shmuel, where do you see Rabbi Shmuel holds of the same opinion? Tiny, we learned in the brisa, Meitav Sadeo, Meitav Karma Yishalim, Meitav Sadeo Shadig, Meitav Karma Yishal Nizik, Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says you pay the best when a guy is a mazik, he pays when he's paying in instead of cash, he's paying in property, he pays what is the value of the best belonging to the nizik. We saw this machlekes early in the Masechta. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Kiva, a little cryptic, but he said, the Torah says you're supposed to, nizikin is supposed to pay from the best. And certainly when you're paying hegdish, you should pay from the best of your fields. It doesn't seem that they have an argument, Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel. So what did Rabbi Shmuel mean to say that you pay the best belonging to the nizik? Well, one way to look at it is that maybe the Torah is telling you that if you're not sure what the animal ate, let's say the animal ate something, the Torah is obligating, you could look at it that way, the Torah is obligating the maziks to pay in the best. In other words, even though you're not sure what the animal ate, the mazik is required to pay best. That's what somebody understood what Rabbi Shmuel was saying. So the Gemara says, "Loi teimed." Don't say that. Rabbi Idi bar Oven, the way Rabbi Idi bar Oven understood the machlokes. The Amar Rabbi Idi bar Oven said, "Kegoin she'achal aruga bein arugos," that he ate one row. The animal ate one row amongst many rows, right? V'loi yadinen, and we don't know. We don't know if it ate a very weak one, a very inferior type of row, or Yishmeina Ava, or he ate from the best row. The Amma, is that what the Torah is saying? Kum Shalem Shmeina b'meitav? The Ika Hashta, that means you require the mazik to pay meitav? The Hachilayim Rinam. We can't say that. because my time, what's the reason? You want to prove, you want to make sure that the mazik pays meitav. Whoever wants to extract money from his friend, he has to prove it. And since you can't prove exactly what the animal ate, so why should the mazik have to pay meitav? Ella, it means like this. In other words, what Rabbi Shmuel was trying to say is an interesting thing. If it ate a tiny budding grape, what Rabbi Shmuel is saying, you pay the best. What it means is, how would that grape look like when it's harvested? Okay, and how much it's worth now? And you pay the difference, what it could have grown into, and that's what you pay, not the value of the grape itself, but the difference between what it ate and what it could have grown into. And that is the same idea of what Rabbi Yossi Glili said, and that's why Abaya said Rabbi Yossi Glili and Rabbi Shmuel are basically saying the same thing. Now the Gemara is going to just explain the Brisa a little bit. Amar Abai, Amar Rab Shimon ben Yehuda, Amar Shimon Shimon, b'medvar memurim, she'achlu luv gave him yichuru te'enim. Hasmada. Rabbi Shmuel said, Rabbi Shimon said that it's mashma only if it ate a grapevine before it had any buds to it. But hasmadar, if the Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda's opinion, if it ate buds, then we view it as if it's grapes ready to be harvested. So once it buds, we give it a stricter value. Let's look at the end of the brisa. It's only if it ate a grape right before it's being harvested, means it's the size of a bean. It's not yet ripe, but you can see it looks like a grape. Then we give it the stricter view, as if since it's so close to being harvested, we view it as grapes ready to be harvested. But if it was just a bud, we just see how much we just evaluate that little bud, not what its potential is. So what is it? What is Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda's opinion is? Amar Ravina explained, you have to put it all together as a sandwich. Only when do you give it the lenient calculation is only if it ate a grapevine that did not give off grapes yet, not even bud. If you ate the bud of a grape, pagin or a beiser, or even if it's a bigger grape but not yet ripened, we view it as if the animal ate grapes ready to be harvested. Says the Gemara, Ihachi Rab Shimon ben Yehuda, Hani Rab Yeshua. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda is saying what Rab Yeshua is saying, because Rab Yeshua on the top of the page says, and if you're saying Rab Shimon ben Yehuda is agreed with that, so they're basically saying the same thing, that smother, you view it as grapes ready to be harvested. Answers the Gemara, Kekash Kufna v'loy Mesayma. Kekash Kufna means, according to one of them, you give them a slight discount. What's the slight discount? Because at the end of the day, now that there's no buds, because the animal ate up the buds of the grapes, the grapevine has more nutrients. It has more nutrients where it doesn't have to weaken itself, because it's not carrying any more of these buds. So you would give them a discount. But I don't know who's going to hold that you give a person a discount. So that's going to be the difference between Shimon ben Yehuda and Rabbi Yeshua. Says the Gemara, Abaya Amma, Masayma. I know who's the opinion that you do give a discount. Mantana the Chash Gufna, who's going to give the discount because of now you don't have the vine being weakened anymore, because it's not carrying any buds anymore. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda here. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda is going to say you give a discount. The Tanya we learned to the Brisa. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon ben Nasi. If someone rapes a girl who's a virgin, you don't pay tsar. Why? Because she's going to anyway, have the pain of the first relations when she gets married. So she was going to have that pain anyway. So you give a little discount for a rapist. So the Chum said, you can't give a discount, because at the end of the day, when a girl is raped, she's in more pain when she's nevelas baratzim, when she gets married and she's having bia on her own terms. So therefore, but Rabbi Shimon ben Yisrael is very quick to give somebody a discount. So it must be he gives a discount to the owner of the animal that ate those buds, that at the end of the day, the vine is going to be a little bit stronger now. It's a stronger vine because it's not carrying buds anymore, and therefore he's going to be more lenient in giving the discount. And the same thing, Amar Abaya concluded this. Hani Tanoi Reb Shimon ben Yehuda Amar B'Rav Echad. These Tanoim and Reb Shimon ben Yehuda said the following thing. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda Amar Amrim. Hani Tanoi, the following Tanoi agreed with Reb Shimon ben Yehuda that you give discounts. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi says Nechi Chaya. With Nechi Chaya means if someone, let's say, caused the miscarriage, so he has to pay for, let's say, Demei Velonis, the value of the embryo, right? He caused the miscarriage, but he gets a discount because at the end of the day, the husband's not going to have to pay for the nurse because there's no nurse anymore, a midwife to help the baby to born because there's no baby being born. So you give a discount. Now he has to get less food for his wife because she's no more pregnant anymore. So you do give discounts. So if you're taking a discount because you're not going to have to get a midwife, certainly you have to give a discount because you're not going to feed your wife anymore. According to Mandiyam, you give a discount because of you don't have to feed her anymore because she's not pregnant anymore. We don't give a discount because you don't have to give a midwife. Because the husband of the wife who's now was miscarried because of a perpetrator, he could say, I wasn't going to pay for a midwife anyway. It's a that my wife is like a Jewish lady, which is in this week's parsha, who doesn't need a midwife. So I don't take discounts. Again, what you walk away from this Gemara is that every type of fair discount that we can give the mazik, we give the mazik. We're 100% honest with the mazik. That if a person did damage, their papa did paskin like Rav Nachman, that you always evaluate it with shishim, just like if your mom did damage with shishim, so you do Rav Papa. He did it with a man. It's another way of saying you do shishim. We paskin that you do shishim if it was a palm tree from a Roman palm tree, then it's not so chashiv. It's not such an important palm tree, so then you can evaluate it as part of shishim. But we paskin like the Reish Galusha, bedikli parsoi, that if you have a Persian palm tree, which is so special and unique, then if you knock down that Persian palm tree, we'll make the guy pay the full value of the Persian palm tree. We're not going to give him go lenient and say, oh, imagine this Persian palm tree was part of a group of 60. We're not going to do that. Now the Gemara tells a story. Eliezer Zeira, we go to Amud Beis, Havasai Masane Ukme V'Koy B'Shuka de Nardoi. He was putting on black shoes and walking around the streets of Nardoi. Ashkucha de Beirag Shkalusa. So the Beirag Shkalusa, the mayor, found him walking with black shoes, which is a sign of Avelis. V'amalei Maishno Hani Masane. Why are you wearing such black shoes? Amalei de Kame Albilna Yerushalayim. I feel so bad that Jerusalem is destroyed. Sava Yurahava Asyu. So the Beirash Galusa, the mayor is talking about, we're dealing with a Balgaiva over here, somebody who's showing off. Well, you're so many years after the destruction of Jerusalem, you Eliezer are still walking around mourning. The Chavshua, and they put him in quarantine. Maybe they thought he was a little Meshiga. Amalei, so he said, no, I'm not nuts. I'm a very smart person. Amalei. So they said, "B'nai Yadin, how do we know that you're a special tzaddik? You know halacha." I'll test you out. Either you ask me a question, or I'll ask you a question. So they said, "Bayat, you ask us a question, see if we can't answer it." He asked the question, "Hayman the katz kufra." If someone cuts down a dates, like a tiny dates that just like a really tiny date that's not yet ripe, right? And my Masham, what do you pay? Amalei, so he said Masham to make kufra, they told him you'd pay nothing because it's a tiny date, and that tiny date, it was unedible. That's what they told Eliezer. So says the Gemara, so he asked them back, Vahave Tamram, but it would have turned into a date. What do you mean you pay nothing? Amalei, so they changed their mind. Masham to make Tamre. You pay the value of a date. Amalei, so he said, but how could you pay the value of a date? Tamre shakalmane, but lav tamre shakalmane. He didn't take a date. He only took something that was not yet a date. So they didn't even know calculations. How do we assess damages, which is a very a hard part of a dayan. How do you make, the guy's guilty, but how much do you make him pay? Amalei, so they gave up and they said, Amalan, you, his name is Eliezer Zeira, you humble one, tell us. Amalu b'shishim. You evaluate how much the field is worth when you have 60 of these date trees full of these types of tiny dates, and how much if one was missing, and that's how much you pay. Amalei man amakavasa. So they said, who agrees with you? Amalei, he said, Hashmuel chai ubeizdina kaim shadru kam Shmuel amalu shape kamaluch b'shitzim v'shafkuhu. Shmuel was alive, and go ask Shmuel. They sent a letter to Shmuel, and Shmuel agreed with Eliezer, and they realized that they're dealing with a very big Talmud Chacham, and they let him go. One more minute, and then we'll stop. We'll go to the Mishnah. Rav Shimon Oima, achla peres gemurim. If you eat, let's say you ate on a tree. Rav Shimon said in the Mishnah, if you eat, let's say, apples off a tree, and those apples were ripe, right? So then what do you pay? So Rav Shimon says, you imagine those apples being sold in Whole Foods. How much is an apple worth in Whole Foods? Just because it's on a tree doesn't mean, since it didn't need the tree, you evaluate it as a retail apple. My timer, what's the reason? It was on a tree. You appraise only things that need the field. Since these are fully ripe apples, right? So you can't look at it, what's an apple worth on a tree? This apple particularly didn't need the tree. So if it doesn't need the tree, you evaluate the apple as if it's sold in a retail store. And that's how much you have to pay. The only time you evaluate the apple of the tree, if it needs the field, if it needs the tree. But if it doesn't, then you evaluate it as it's sold in a retail store. And the Gemara concludes, Rav Huna bar Chia, Rav Yirmiyama, Don Rav Karameir, Rav Paskin like Rav Meir, Upasa Kilchasa Rav Shimon. And he Paskin like Rav Shimon. Don Rav Karameir, Rav Paskin like Rav Meir, in one place in Ksubis, the tiny Ksubas Lishon Lechosmal Hashem Lechosmal Yibd Ksubasa de Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda Michal Hi Armash Takas Time and Nachas Ruach Hasis the Bala Atem Ma Lechem Alai. So in this case in Ksubis, he Paskin like Rav Meir, Upasa Kilchas Rav Shimon. He Paskin like in our Mishnah, like Rav Shimon. Gihad Tanam, Rav Shimon Omer, Rav Shimon says, Ochla Peres Gemurim. If the animal ate ripened fruits that are on the tree, Mishal Emes Peres Gemurim, then they pay the full value of apples as it's worth in the store. It doesn't matter how much it ate, we're going to always give him a very big high price because he ate fully grown fruits that could have been sold in a store. Okay, we'll stop here.